and welcome to the Laughter Channel, where humour interest meets humour interest. The following story is actually not that funny. Lee Kirkman, my guest, has endured many losses and experienced a lot of grief, especially around her son and his addictions. Yet along this path, she has consistently shown up for others, found inner resources she didn't know that she had, and been a source of great joy in other people's lives. Lee Kirkman, thank you so much for joining me today and agreeing to be part of the program. I think I met you back around 2004, might have been a little bit earlier than that. But I know you came to my grieving program, my Good Grief program, and part of the passage that had brought you to that was about losing your husband some years previous. Yeah, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, he got sick. He was just losing weight, and I said to him, "Are you trying?" And he was like, "No." And I said, "Well, then you need to go to the doctor." This was probably the September of 1999, and so he finally pulled his ass off to the doctors in about October or November, and had some tests and everything, and they came back and told us that it wasn't cancer. And then he kept losing weight, and in the February they finally operated, discovered it was a form of cancer, and they operated, and then they sewed him back up again, and there wasn't really anything they could do, and so he passed away 6 weeks later in April 2000, well, maybe it was 2000 because he died in 2001. And so yeah, so in the end, yeah, we had kind of 6 weeks to decide how I was going to carry on without him. And so yeah, so it was a pretty traumatic time, and probably suffered with grief on my own. I moved to Auckland, and so it was probably about 5 years after he had died. So it was probably about 2006 actually. I was going to the gym at the time, and there was a leaflet in the ladies' changing rooms about a Good Grief program, well, helping others through grief. It wasn't like a counselling or anything, it was just that if you'd been through grief, you could support somebody else who was going through grief, you know, because you had that same understanding. So I contacted the woman, Elizabeth York, by email and suggested to her that I was ready to help somebody else through grief, because it's a pretty traumatic thing to go through. And she told me that before I could be part of her program, I had to go and do a Good Grief course with Pat. So I duly contacted Pat and went and did my Good Grief course. Initially, like I was always a really positive person, and to the extent my husband used to say to me, "Don't even think about it because we're not ready to do that yet, you know, you put your mind to something and it just happens, you know." So of course after he died, I kind of lost my way in being positive, trying to, it was hard to stay positive when the person that you loved the most had just passed away and you weren't able to love them better, you know. So I came and did your course, and of course I remember one of the other girls on the course with us, she said to me after the second week, she said, "Oh, this is like osmosis, you just absorbed all this information." And I remember saying to her, "Well, actually I already knew it, I just lost my way." And so meeting you and doing that course just brought me back to who I actually was, you know, so, and finding myself again through out the other side of grief, you know, so yeah, and being able to build my life. Like, you never recover from grief, it's kind of like this whole turmoil, messed up ball of wool inside you that you just build a life around, and then at certain times it kind of all comes unraveled again, and then you've got to ravel it back up again. So yeah, so but that was how I met you, and the grief, I mean, I recommend the Good Grief course to everybody. It's just having, yeah, you taught me about vision boards. I was saying to you the other day, you know, I still make my vision boards and still, you know, work towards where I'm going next in my life. So, yeah. So,
I was just going to say, one of the things I remember, I can't remember if it was the second or the third day, you came back and you'd created this amazing book with quotes and sayings and the most amazing art, incredibly creative, one of those little bound thicker page booklets that you were making. And for me, that was the that's when I saw the change. That's when I saw the shift, and it was like, look at what's coming through now, from that period. Now, at that time, I think you hadn't been working for quite some time. Was that correct?
I was working from home doing nails at that stage.
Oh, yes.
So I just started working at home doing nails, yeah. So, because obviously, like when my husband died, I mean, I was hairdressing at the time, but I found it quite hard to converse with my customers and pretend nothing had happened, when my husband died and when he was sick. I mean, before he got sick, it was like we'd been asked at the salon for someone who did nails, and I'd always known a lady who taught how to do nails. And I said to him, when after Christmas I want to go and do a nail course. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And I remember when he was sick and he was like, babe, I know you wanted to do your nail course and I'm sick and you can't go. And I'm like, yeah, like you really got sick just so I can do a nail course, So it was kind of like just a little bit of a joke between us. So after he died, I went and did do my nail course, and I just adored doing nails. It was just my passion. Just a passion, and more so than the hairdressing. And of course, after he died, I was able to work from home and raise my son. So yeah. I did that many years. Yeah, in between doing, every now and again, it was like I need a real job, and I'd go and get an office job or something like that. But it always ended up that my son needed more of my time than permanent employment did. So I was able to do that and work from home. So yeah.
And along that pathway, your son became fairly troubled?
Yes.
Yeah. So what happened in that period?
He never really, I mean, I can look back and, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I look back and he was probably about 6 when I thought to myself, I'm going to have trouble keeping this kid on the straight and narrow. You just kind of, as a mother, you just kind of know, He'd taken $30 out of my wallet and gone and bought some cards or something that he wanted and then lied about it, and what have you. So I finally got the truth out of him and punished him, obviously, And it was that moment that I sort of had a glimpse of what was to come, but not to the extent of what I've actually been through with him. So, and of course at school he never learned anything. It was like Martin was on his own path. The rules didn't apply to Martin. That was Martin's train of thought all the way along, and so every time he was at school he just would muck around and disrupt the class, and so I think he didn't know how to learn, and so rather than saying I don't know how to do this, he would just play up and disrupt the class, and of course he could go to the class, so he never really ever learned anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, he can read and write and spell and do sums and things like that, so he did learn some things, but it never interested him. He was a hands-on kid, I mean, at 3 he could take apart a door lock, and put it back together again. It's like he wanted to know how everything worked, and he's creative, takes after his mother and is creative, but obviously in different areas, whereas I make things. I mean, he still makes things, but like his artistry and things like that is just phenomenal, and he can look at a picture and make a motorbike out of matchsticks that's down to the, infinite sizing and everything. So, yeah, and so then we moved up here to Auckland, and he was at North Cross Intermediate, and I think one of the things that stands out of my memory is the school ringing me, telling him he was selling grass clippings rolled up in tinfoil like it was marijuana. So, and I mean, yeah, entrepreneurial by all means, but yeah, probably not the right way to go about it, and so, and I don't know if the school was more upset the fact that it wasn't marijuana, and they actually wanted some kind of thing, I mean, I've got to try and look at dark humour, gets you through these situations. So it just progressed from there, and then yeah, he just never settled at school, never did anything, was always, he'd come home with something and the stealing and, but the shoes were just lying on the side of the paddock, so nobody wanted them, so they're mine kind of thing. It's like, well, actually, no. So, yeah, so there was a couple of trips where I took him to the police station and asked them to read him the riot act and that kind of thing, and the behaviour just got progressively worse. Then when he was due to go to high school, I went to the school and said to them, look, I'm worried my son will fall through the cracks, and I need a safety net for him. I don't know what you can do to help me with this, you know. And then it just progressed, and he got excluded from school, and then he ended up going to a juvenile delinquent kind of school for a while. I think that one of the ladies at the school he was expelled from, she actually heard my pleas for help. I was almost suicidal by that stage, and she got me in touch with a MST team. I can't for the life of me remember what it all meant now, what it stands for, but it gave me 6 months of 24/7 someone to phone and go, I need help, you know. I went to Tough Love. I remember going there, and then, you know, the facilitator said, you know, well, come with me and tell me your story, and telling her my story, and then being asked to come back and facilitate. And it's like, well, I'm here for help. I can't help other people, but I can't help myself. But I mean, I was tough, in the respect that, you know, like he wouldn't come in for a shower one night, you know, and he was out riding his bike, and I called, and then I rang Madeline at the MST team, and she said, just wait until he comes in, and then just carry on as normal. Anyway, so he finally came in, and while he was in the shower, I took the spanner to his bike and took the front wheel off and locked it in the bed of my car so he couldn't ride the bloody thing, you know. It was like that kind of tough love. I mean, I'd take the card out of the Sky machine so he couldn't watch Sky TV all bloody night, you know, and things like that. I emptied his whole room one time because, you know, he'd done something, and so I took everything out of his room and locked it in another bedroom, so he had nothing. He had just had his clothes and the blankets on his bed kind of thing. It's like no toys, no PlayStation, nothing, you know, everything was gone. And it didn't matter what I did, it just didn't seem to, he just didn't seem to care. It was like, yeah, whatever, Mum's just off on another spell. So it got progressively worse, and then we got him into another school, and then he decided, like, we hadn't seen his father for 12 years, and so it got to the stage at the next school he would just play up. He knew that if he played up, they'd ring me, and I'd have to go and get him, and he wouldn't have to stay at school, so that's what he did, you know. But in saying that, like, I'd go and get him by all means, but then I would, like, take him down to the beach and make him walk up and down the beach, and then I'd make him write a story about it and take it into school the next day. And I tried to get him to do work from at home, you know, as well as work myself. And, you know, it's like, it was pretty hard to work because I just couldn't trust him. I couldn't leave him in the house or anything like that, you know. So then he wanted to find his father, so I found his father, and in the end it was a case of his counsellor at the school said to me, you know, you need to put him on a plane. So I rang his father and said, when can you be at the airport? And he said Saturday. So I literally put my son on a plane, and I mean, if I hadn't done it there and then, I never would have done it. And it wasn't a decision I made easily, but, like, you know, oh, my father's better, he's better than you, and you're such a horrible cow, and rah, 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 rah. And so, yeah, so I put him on a plane to a father he never really met, and to Australia. And he was over there for 2 years, and probably the first little while it went okay. I think his father, we kind of had a united front. He'd ring me every week, you know, and his father was of the same ilk as me, which surprised me, as in, you know, disciplinary things, and if you don't do this, this is what happens, and all this stuff. But again, of course, Martin doesn't want to live by the rules, so he left his father's place, and what he wanted to come home, and I was like, no, you've got to stay there for 2 years, you know. And so then he was caught up with the Salvation Army, and I remember a Salvation Army person ringing me and telling me that, you know, my son had nowhere to live, and he was homeless, and what was I going to do about it? And I said to him, how long have you known my son? He said, oh, no, you know, 6 months. And I was like, well, when you've known him for 15 years, then ring me and complain about him. I said, he's got a father over there who cares about him. He could have a roof over his head and a bed to sleep in and food if he wants to obey the rules. But he doesn't want to live by our rules, so he needs to grow up and do what he wants to do. You know, what can you do? You can't force them to live by your rules, you know. There's no support for the parents anymore to discipline their children or anything like that. I really detest people who are like, oh, but where were the parents? Well, actually, we're at home trying to figure out a way to keep our kids on the straight and narrow. And when our kids are saying to us, oh, yeah, no, I'm just going down to Joe's place, and I'll be back at 4. And at 6 o'clock, you know, you go around to Joe's and he's never even been there. It's like, you know, you can only do so much as a parent, you know, to keep them safe and what have you. And I mean, the majority of kids are good, you know, it's a minority, but it's always the minority that you hear about the most, the negativity that you hear about the most. So then while he was in Australia, unbeknownst, well, I didn't realise at the time because I was so naive and had no idea about justice and police and courts and all the rest of it. So he ended up in juvenile detention in Australia, and after he'd done his time there. And I mean, yeah, because hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I didn't get the whole manipulation thing. I remember once he got back, because in the end it was a case of his father wouldn't have him and they didn't want him in Australia, and put him on a plane back to me when he was 16, just straight out of a juvenile detention centre. So, and then I remember my ex-husband ringing me and saying to me, you know, do you see how much he manipulates you? And it's like, no. And the partner I had here in New Zealand at the time, you know, he could see that Martin was manipulating me, but I mean, I didn't want to know, you know, you're a parent, it's your child, and the step parent kind of, it's like, you know, I allowed Paul to help me as much as I would allow it. You know, he would have loved to have done more to help me, but I wouldn't allow it because, you know, he wasn't Martin's father, obviously. And so he did the best that he could at the time, like we all do, you know, we do the best that we can at the time with the information that we have. And so when he got back from his father's, and I think then I realised how much he manipulated me. And so, and it just went from bad to worse, where he stole from me and I'd end up sleeping with my keys and tablets and stuff under my pillow, and couldn't trust him, and I'd be out and he'd break into my house and have parties and the police would be called, and then the insurance wouldn't cover it because he lived there and he was allowed to break into his house. And you know, the night he rings me at 3 o'clock in the morning and goes, Mum, don't be angry, you know, I've taken the car. There was one night when you were there, and you know, he took to the house with a crowbar and what have you. So, but at the end of the day, I remember my brother saying to me, you know, like, oh, you know, you've got to do something, you've got to do something. And then he got a job through a friend of mine at a butcher shop, and then he was just one day a week, but it was like, well, that's good, you know, he can start paying me back for all the damage that he's done and things like that. And then he was offered a week's work, and he wouldn't get out of bed and go to work, you know, and that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I remember he'd taken all my sleeping tablets again, and I rang the doctors, and then the doctor had a go at me, or the nurse did. And I drove over the steps and I said, you know, I need help. I need help with this kid. And they're like, well, you know, he's 16, there's nothing we can do. And I said to them, I had an umbrella, and I said, so if I go home and stab him 60 times with this umbrella, will you help me then? And they were kind of like, oh, dearie me, you know, his mother's finally lost the plot. Can't remember the actual outcome, but anyway, so then the doctors rang, and it was like, you know, you only just got a prescription. It's like, yeah, well, my son's stealing them, and you know, da 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 da. And in the end, this doctor said, you know, I want you to bring your son down, and we'll get him onto rehab, you know, and what have you. I don't know if it was that, or get him onto something. I mean, it's all a bit blurry sort of now. I try not to remember it all. But yeah, there was heaps of people that did come to my rescue, but and angels, like everywhere I looked, there were people that helped me. And then there was the time, you know, that somebody knocked on the door, I wasn't home, my brother was there, and they'd come to get my son because he'd evidently broken into someborised house and burglarised it. And found out the next day, so I drove round to where the friends he was staying at, and you know, put him in the car and drove him to the police station and said to them, you know, my son's been accused of a burglary and here he is, and sorted out, you know. And this policeman was kind of quite gobsmacked and actually said to me, well, we're not used to mothers like you, you know. It's like we're used to parents bringing their children into the police station, you know. So, and it was a little while down the track, like, I don't know, he'd stolen from me, and we got him into rehab, and I can't remember how it all happened, but yeah, we got him into rehab. He managed to go through a strip search at the rehab place with a pack of cigarettes, and I'm not quite sure how he did that. And he used to just try and intimidate me, and he just wouldn't. He would ask for something, and he just wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted, you know. So it was just a never-ending. It just some of your shoe, you know, just wearing away at you all the time.
And a number of times in conversation, and also in your book and various blogs, I think, you and other friends of yours have commented on just how relentless he was in that manipulative process.
Yes.
Mm.
And I know SIFS did come to Paddy, and we had to go to court, and I remember the guy from SIFS meeting me outside the court, and he said to me, "You go and have a life," he said, "we'll take it from here." And it was like, oh my God, I mean, what an angel. I could have just, I'm still going to cry now. It was one of the kindest things somebody ever said to me, you know. I had to ask my son to leave home at 16 because we just couldn't, I couldn't live with his behaviour. And I'd been to the police station, and under the Child Youth and Families Act, they couldn't charge him because it was against his rights. But it was all right for him to steal from me and trash my house and do all those things. And the reason I went to SIFS that day, like my brother's like, oh, you know, he's done all these things to you. He's trashed your house, and he's taken your car, and he's done this and he's done that. And you lose the plot because he won't go to work. And my thinking at the time, and still is, was the fact that I could fix that. I could fix the car. I could fix a hole in the door. Do you know what I mean? I could replace china that was broken. But I couldn't instill in him the importance of going to work and earning the money to pay me back for that, you know, to make some amends for what he'd done to me. And so, whereas things that I could fix, I just carried on and just fixed it. But the fact that he didn't have any respect for me, or enough respect for me, to want to go to work and pay me back for that, was what broke me, that made me do something about it, or do something further about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I won tickets to go and see Nigel Laird. This was way before he was ever famous. I mean, at the time when we went to his talk, it was just when he was recording his very first TV show, and he was just, I bought his book, you know, Before Your Teenager Drives You Crazy, Read This. And it was a thing that he said, and it was like, you had to be like the silverback, solid mothers had to be like a silverback gorilla in the forest, you know. The forest could be burning down around you, but you just sat and you just stood your ground. And he said, but that's what single mothers have to be, and that's what I tried to become, you know, and be the rock where the ocean's travelling around you, but you just stay stable. And so that's what I tried, you know, my best to be. And when I was at the police station for the first time having my son charged, and my brother was texting me, SGB, you know, SGB, you're a silverback gorilla, you know. To the extent I actually had to turn my phone off because the police woman was looking at me sideways. But so, you know, there's things that come in unexpected ways, winning the tickets to that show. And then in the end, like, I took him with me. I mean, he was stoned off his trade, but anyway, and he was the only teenager there. But he came and he sat with me, and even the last time I kind of saw him, he was like, I remember when we went to that show, Mum, you know, and things like that, you know. So he did acknowledge that. Yeah.
A big change that I probably observed was after he'd trashed the house that time, and you'd actually taken him down the police station, or you'd gone to the police station on your own maybe, and you had this really long conversation with this poor policeman. Having the conversation that Martin would have with you to the policeman, and telling him, you know, shut up and hear me, you know. And the so for me that was a pivotal time, because you didn't get any insurance for the house, so friends helped you repair the house. You sold that house, you bought the place that you're still in now, and bought a new car, and you went and did some training, English as a second language, with intentions of going to France and spending some time there. That didn't actually come to fruition yet, but it actually was a great turning point, wasn't it? I think it was. Yeah.
Well, because after I asked my son to leave home, I mean, we had intermittent contact, and, you know, and then he ended up in jail. He's been in and out of jail since he was 17. And so it's like having to, I mean, I've never been to a prison before in my life. So, you know, the whole experience of going to a prison for the first time and seeing my son in prison. So I did that for a few times. And then I'd gone to the prison one time, and I was treated like a criminal by one of the guards. And I remember going up and getting to see him in the visiting room and leaning across the table and hissing at him that he was never to go back because I was never going to visit again because I was not a criminal. And of course, but in full mother mode, you know, and he's like, yeah, chill, mum, just chill. But that's the thing with him, is I've always stuck to my guns, and if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And so, yes, I've never been back to visit him in prison, so I haven't actually seen him for 7 years. But yeah, but during the time, it was like for my 40th, I ended up being taken to England and Europe and fell in love with France. I mean, I'd always had a love affair with France, but actually being there. And so then my dream was that I was going to learn to teach English, and I was going to go back and teach the French how to speak English and what have you. So yes, I came home and I did that TESOL course, and of course, yes, at that stage here, my son wasn't around and I was able to study and I took a month off work at the time and went and did this study and became a TESOL teacher and what have you. But yeah, like you say, it's like, yeah, it hasn't come to fruition at this stage, but it's still a...
But yeah, very much, you know, I really see, sometimes we can't see in the moment, well, you know, I did that and I had that intention, but it didn't happen. But it's really just very much a part of the journey. Along that pathway, your house was stamped as a leaky home.
Yes.
How long ago was that?
7 years ago.
Yeah. So
I had my house on the market to sell, and I was going to go and live in France for a year. So it was all, I'd already made contact with a company that would help me get there, and I was going to with a family and teach them French, and you know, 15 hours a week, and the rest of the time was mine to feel free to travel around France and all this sort. So I was already booked, and the house was on the market, and then they came back and said, oh, it's leaky, and so yeah, all of a sudden the value dropped out of it. It wasn't worth anything, and so it's been a very long, slow, emotional, mentally, financially straining 7 years. So they say,
you haven't. Sorry, you haven't actually lived in your home for how long?
18 months.
Yeah, okay.
I've been back in it for a month. I've been back in, but it's on the market now because obviously I've had to borrow an awful lot of money to get it fixed, and I can't afford to pay it back.
Yeah. So is Martin still in prison?
I haven't actually had any contact with my son for the last year. Like normally, like even though I said I wouldn't visit him, we had an instance where he was actually through probation, was actually staying with me for a little while, and it all kind of went pear-shaped, and I ended up having to ring the police and have him taken away. And I haven't actually seen him since then.
Yeah.
But probation told me that I was to have no contact, that my son, you know, as you know, but nobody else probably does at this point in time, is that he is a drug addict. And that was my first, the day that police came in. He never, with my son, he would never try, like he never tried to come in. I had the locks changed and he didn't try to come in, and like when I passed something out the door, he didn't try and reach the door out of my hands or anything, he just wouldn't leave, you know. And so the police finally arrived, and once they'd got him subdued and in the car, one of them came in the house and he said to me, he's coming down from something. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and it was like a domino. You know how you set up the dominoes and you hit one and they all just fall down? In my head, everything that had happened just was like a domino effect, and I could then see the drug addiction that had affected. I had this child that I just loved and adored, and I had this alien then, because I've never had anything to do with drugs. I didn't put the alien down to being a drug addict because I didn't know about drugs. And so that day that policeman said to me he's coming down was just like, oh my God, everything just fell into place. And so probation said to me, you know, 1, you need to go to CADS, and 2, you can't have any contact with him whatsoever. He's got to hit rock bottom, and while you're there helping him, he's not going to change. But then I got a letter from my son saying, Mum, do you still love me? And I rang probation and I said, can I write back? And they said no. And that as a mother, you can't not. So I did write him back, and I did tell him that I still loved him, and that, but I told him he had to make a choice, that he could either have drugs or he could have his mother, but he couldn't have drugs. That I would always love him, but I didn't agree with his behaviour or his choices in life, because that's what it's about. It's not the person that's bad, it's the choices they're making that are bad. And it's taken me a long time to differentiate. And now when I'm talking to other parents, you know, the little ones, and they go, that's a bad, you know, don't get so bad. And I go, no, they're not bad. It's unacceptable behaviour, or it's acceptable. And like everybody's opinions of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable are different, you know. So you have to, if one parent's unacceptable behaviour, you can't say, oh no, that's okay, because it's not your child and it's not your place to say what's acceptable and what's not. You can only make that decision for yourself and yours, you know, and what's yours. Yeah. So yeah. So yes, I haven't seen him, and he was still in jail. So then he would write me when he was in jail, and I would send him art supplies because he's very creative, and I pick at them. And I used to send him self-help books when he was in jail, because like he had nothing else to do, so he could read them. You know, I'd send him all that, because I taught him meditation as a young child. So I'd send him meditation things while he was in prison, because he couldn't get away from me. You know, I could just send him this stuff. And then last year in May, he wrote me a letter, and I swear to God, it was the same bullshit he's been writing me since he went into jail with his crime. You know, I was the worst mother in the whole goddamn world, and oh, woe is me, and it's you know, and I'm a victim. And I was just like, enough already, will you grow up, let it go, you know. So that's when I finally got the courage. I had some counselling and what have you, and I wrote him and said, you know, that, yeah, you know, taking drugs is actually the easy way out. It doesn't help you face up to the pain of what life, you know, experience you've had, and that it's actually harder to actually deal with that life experience than it is to take drugs, you know. So I haven't seen or heard from him in a year.
Yeah. And yet you've become a grandmother along that pathway.
I have, yes, I have the most amazing grandson, yeah. So who I'm very blessed that they allow me to be a part of his life.
Yeah. So you see him regularly, obviously?
Well, no, not as regularly as I would like, you know. Okay. We don't have, it's situation normal for us. This is our normal, and so when I see him, I just take every ounce of pleasure out of it, and then I use those moments to cope with my day. That is just the apple of my eye. Yes, it's just the spit of my son, and you know, so.
You've been through so much, and when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and you were telling me about your current role, you've had numerous jobs along this pathway, and then you were talking to me about this leadership role that you now have, a supervisory role, and the work that you're doing there. What it was like when you arrived and what it's like now. Can you share some of that?
Oh, look. So I've been out of work, as you know, like I crushed my wrist a few years ago, and so
we don't have to name the company, okay?
Okay. I crushed my wrist, and so getting work, you know, especially when you're in your late 40s, early 50s, it's, I don't know, and because I think because I've had so much adversity in my life, I'm not that politically correct, and I can't pussyfoot around things. I just like have it said, you know, bam, this is it, you know. I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and I don't sugarcoat it, unfortunately. But a lot of people find that quite harsh, you know. So anyway, I've been looking for a job. I'd applied for like 16 jobs this particular day, and anyway, eventually 3 weeks later, this woman rang me and said, oh, you know, I'd like you to come in for this interview. So I was like, yay. So off I toddled, and it was like, and she said to me, you know, situation's a bit sticky and it's a bit of a, you know, unusual setup, but, you know, I think you've got the initiative and what have you. And she said, you know, I'm employing you as like a contact centre person. And she said, you know, we're looking for a supervisor as well. And me being me went, oh, look, just put me forward for the supervisor role, you know. And she's like, really? And I'm like, oh God, yeah. I said, I think I'd be way better as a supervisor than as a contact centre person, you know. So anyway, it turns out she took me at face value and she employed me as her supervisor. And so I was so excited to finally have a job, full-time job, you know, like, I mean, not being able to live in my house, and I've been trying to pay my mortgage, and I've been trying to pay rent somewhere, and I couldn't afford everything, and, you know, everything's in storage, and you haven't got your stuff around you. It's like just, you know, one thing after another, and just struggling for money for so long. So I got this job. So anyway, so I rocked up to this job the first day, and I think I'd been there 2 hours, and I was like, what the hell have I got myself into? This place, I mean, nice people, don't get me wrong, but oh my God, they were all just, and there was, nobody said good morning when they came in, nobody said goodbye at night, they all just traipsed in and sat there, and I was like, Jesus Christ, you know, this isn't me. So anyway, I struggled through the day, and I got home, and I was living with a friend at the time, and so she got home and she had dinner and she had the bottle of wine, and then she's going, yay, your first day, how'd it go? And I was like, don't bother pouring it, just give me the bottle. It's like, fuck. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then she said to me, very wise woman is my friend, and she said to me, Lee, you're there for a reason. You got that job for a reason. And I was like, well, fuck knows what that reason was, because Christ, I don't know how I'm going to do this job, you know. So anyway, I went to bed that night and I slept on it, and I got up in the morning and I decided that the reason I got that job, I took a leaf out of my friend Pat's book, and the reason I was there for that job was I was going to make those goddamn people happy. If it was the last thing I did, I was going to make them bloody happy. It might be, you know, you can't, like I say to them, so I do all these pep talks. We're the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, and we've just got to pick up the pieces and glue them back together. And it's like, we can't change the infrastructure of the company, but we can change how we speak to these people on the other end of the phone. And so that was kind of the start of it. And I made a point, because obviously I didn't know anybody. There was probably 30 people working on this contact centre floor. I made a point every morning. I went round and said good morning to every single one of them. Hi, this morning, you good? Yay, let's get through another day. Every single person. It took me about half an hour to start my day, you know. And then in the evenings when I'd go, oh, bye, thanks for coming in today, you know, it's really good, we'll see you tomorrow, you know. And they were all kind of like, oh my God, who's this crackpot? You know, it's like, she's amazing, isn't it? I can live with that, I am, but you know. So it started with that. And so I still to this day, every morning go in. I mean, we're down to probably about 12 of us now, but every morning I go in and it's like, how you doing? Had a good day? How was your night? You know, how's your girlfriend doing? You know, how's your boyfriend? You know, because they've been in hospital. I listen to what issues they've got, and it just makes, oh my God, it's a completely different floor. But plus I do little things, you know what I mean? So come Christmas time, so I wear my Christmas dress in, got my Christmas hat on, and I mean, it's not just an ordinary hat, you know, it's a grey felt purple, you know, like the, who was he? The hat, Cat in the Hat, grey, big purple lace flowers, fairy lights, the whole goddamn drama, you know. So I ponce around on Christmas Day in this dress and everything. Come New Year's Eve and we're all working, so I go in. We're not allowed alcohol on the job, obviously, so I buy bottles of grape ties and I buy liqueur chocolates and all this kind of thing, and then I find Auld Lang Syne on the computer and we're singing Auld Lang Syne while we're working on Christmas, New Year's Eve and all this kind of thing, and they're all like, oh my God, nobody's ever done this before, you know. And then it'd be like something would come out and I'd go, Logan, can you look at this? And like this kid would just come into work and he'd have his headphones on and sit at the computer, kind of high, you know. And I said, by the time he left us, unfortunately, I had to find, you know, he found another job. But he was running, he was helping me. He was my 2IC. He was training people for me. He had written our training processes, you know, like he was my go-to guy. And like when I started, he wouldn't say boo, and we started this thing. And so then, yeah, they had to watch this video of a new program we were getting in, and they said to me, oh, what do we have to watch this for, Lee? And I said, to get you inspired and enthused about the new phone system. I said, and when you've all finished watching it, I want to see your happy hands. And like even now, 5 months later, I walk in and they're like, happy hands, Lee, you know. And so yeah, and so for my team, so now I've actually got my own team online. We run the online team and that for the contact centre. And so I started off with 12 of them, and so come Valentine's Day, I crocheted them all little ninja hearts. You know, everybody loves them, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they're all around my son's age. You know, I think the youngest was kind of 22 and the oldest was 29, you know. So like I'm old enough to be all their bloody mothers, you know. And so of course that mothering, and I think because I don't have my son to give my love to, I kind of give it to these guys and try and make life fun for them at work, you know. And so I crocheted these 12 ninja hearts, sewed on all the good guys, put them on keychains and everything. And then I wore my Valentine's Day hat in on Valentine's Day and took in chockies and all the rest of it. Then I went round and went, Happy Valentine's Day. And like the thing that got me the most was that they all knew who their favourite Ninja Turtle was, and they all got to pick their favourite Ninja Turtle. And these key rings, they're on their bags, they're on their lanyards, they're hanging around their computers. I made them little signs that said, you're a customer services ninja, and they stuck them all on their computers. And I've got their names on their computers, you know, so that when we set up our seating, with a little positive thing, you know, like Logan, you're my rock, you know, and what have you, and be awesome and keep it up and you've got this. And so, yeah. And then because our job's so stressful, we're dealing with a lot of, you know, like the majority of the company has the majority of their customers are happy, but we deal with the ones that aren't, you know, so it's a really tough job, you know. And so I'm an avid crocheter, as you know, and I do a lot of creative things, but I found these F-bombs. So you crochet this little ball with a wick and put an F on it. And they've got a little Wheatie bag inside them, so they've got a little bit of weight but can't do too much.
It's like a grenade.
Yes, yes. But instead of saying fuck all the time like I do, they've got an F-bomb instead. So I crocheted them all these F-bombs. They just love it, and they're all on their desks, and they all hold them around when they're upset or stressed or what have you, you know, and they just think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I mean, so like going in there, when did I start there? In October last year, to this, oh my God, you'd have to say the morale was in the toilet, you know? Whereas like now, I've got people who, they found other jobs, not because of the work, but because the company doesn't actually pay that much money, and because they don't spend a lot of time fixing what needs to be fixed, you know. So these young people have gone. But I think the biggest compliment I've had is the fact that we don't want to leave the team, Lee. We don't want to leave you or the team. This is just such, it's like the people we work with are just the most amazing bunch of people, and they don't want to go because of that. They're going for other reasons. And I think that says a lot for, and like you say, I never thought of it as leadership before, but like my immediate supervisor, he says to me, Lee, he said, you are a leader. And he says, you know, I said, Tony, I don't actually really do anything. You know, I kind of sit here. And he says, never underestimate the conductor of an orchestra. And that's what you are. You're my conductor. He said, well, you're running this team, you're organising, you know, rosters, and you're making sure the work's being done, and you've set up this daily planner, and you've done this, and you do that, and he says, and you don't just cater to their work needs, you're aware of what's going on in their private lives. He said, and I couldn't do my job if you weren't doing yours. So, and that's like, yeah, I've come a long way since I first met you, Pat.
Yes.
I'm a long way. And I'm so
I understand.
proud.
Even the general manager came and requested one of those F-bombs.
Oh my God, yes. That's, I mean, in the end, I like, people would see them and they would be like, oh, can you make me one? Can you make me one? And one of the girls on my team was going, yeah, no, it's $10, people. Sorry, it's $10. And I'm like, will you stop it? I don't want to make it. I was just something I was doing for my team to keep them as, you know. And that, yes, so that I ended up making, I don't know how many of these F-bombs. And yeah, so the general manager, he wanted one, and yeah, a lot of other people. And so there was one lady who's like supposed to help our team, and she wanted one, and my boss said to me, oh, she really wants one. I was like, really? And he's like, oh, you better start learning how to crochet then, hadn't you? But anyway, I made her one, and I gave it to my boss, and I said, you know what, you can take this down to her, and you can tell her that your supervisor is not above bribery to get what she wants. But yeah, so I feel like I underestimate my emotional, what is it? Intelligence, what's the IQ? Emotional, EQ, you know, so the fact that, yeah, I cater to everybody's emotional needs as well, and it's the well-being of my team rather than just the working side of my team.
Yes. Along this pathway, a couple of years back, you actually, in a very short period of time, sat down and just wrote your book. In fact, it just poured out of you. What's your book called?
Oh dear, tough times. It's a journey, my journey through my son's addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite funny. In my family, you know, obviously I've had quite a few traumas in my life, and my family have always said to me different times, oh, you should write a book. I'm not writing a book. Who on earth would want to read about my life, you know? And so this had been going on for quite some time. And then I was here one night, and it was like, I wonder how you write a book. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought, I wonder how you write a book. So I jumped onto the computer and I Googled, I Googled publishers, and I actually emailed these publishers and said to them, how do I go about writing a book? You know, and so they didn't kind of answer me straight away. So I jumped on and went, how do you write an autobiography? And so this one particular site that I found said, you have to know what you want, what story you want to tell. Like, rather than writing about your whole life, you need to pick an area of your life that you want to tell other people about. And I thought, oh, I could do that. And then I rang my cousin, who's really, really supportive, and I said to her, yeah, but I said, I looked up publishers today. And she said, good. And I said, yeah. I said, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And she said, and this other thing this thing said is, you need to find your voice. You've got to have a writing style kind of thing. And so I said to her, oh, you know, this page says this and it says that. And she said, well, you did those writing papers when you were at university. I was going to go and be a social worker at one stage and help other people through, you know, that way, after what my son had done. And that, but yeah, it wasn't really my idea from time that I go to university. But I did a writing paper because obviously I'd never been to university and didn't know how to write a paper. And so I still actually had those papers that I'd written. And I remember I had to write, you had to do a story, this was in this writing one, comparing two things. So I compared having a teenager at home and not having a teenager at home. So it was obviously when my son had gone to stay with his father. And I remember this 19-year-old boy who was in the same writing class as me, because we had to put, everything was done online, so we had to put it online. And then someone else would grab our story and critique it for us. And he came back to me and he said, I don't have any children of my own. He said, but this is just, he said, I understand completely what you're talking about, and you should be writing for a parenting magazine. And so that was from a 19-year-old, and I was in my 40s. So I thought that was pretty high praise. So I dug out these papers that I'd written then, and it's like, oh yeah, I know what my voice is. Do you know what I mean? Because I write how I talk, you know. So that was okay. And so then this thing said, you know, you've got to write an introduction. And so that was that, and I figured, right, I just want to write about me and Martin, you know, just what I've been through with my son, you know. So I sat down at my computer, and this was over a week that I'd done all this kind of researchy stuff and what have you. And I sat down at the computer and I wrote introduction, and then I went, okay, so what do I want to talk about? And I swear to God, it was just there, like that. I wrote this for a week. I remember my partner texting me going, oh, I'll pick you up at 10 and we'll go out for coffee. And this was like the day before, you know, so on the Monday. And I remember it being like 9:30 the next morning and going, oh, fuck, and texting him and going, oh, no, I can't go out for coffee, I've got to write. Because I couldn't stop, it was just there. And so I'd literally be writing a chapter, you know, it was just there. And I'd email it to my cousin. And first I sent her one chapter, and that was about, like, with my first husband. And she said, you need to write more about Sid. And I said, no, this is about me and Martin. And so then, of course, we got down the way a bit, and there was a bit about my second husband and stepchildren and his death and what have you. You need to write more about the stepchildren. No, this is about me and Martin. Oh, you need to write more about you and Greg. And I said, no, this is about me and Martin. Because you can't, to bring in all those other factors of my life would have mean this book was a tomb, you know. It's like, you've got to be realistic. So, and then I got sort of halfway through the week, and I'm still emailing her, and it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sending her a chapter, and then she emailed me and she said, are you eating? Are you drinking? Are you clean? Because it's like, I was just writing. So, and I was eating and I was having showers, but it'd be like one night I went to bed and it's like, no, I haven't finished, and I had to get up and go back on the computer, and I was writing till 3 o'clock in the morning, you know. I think there was one chapter where I was trying to do it chronologically, and it's like it just wasn't gelling, you know. And so I went to bed, and I got the next morning, and then I got out all the letters he'd written while he was in prison, and found one from my stepson, of course, who had since passed away as well. And then it's like, no, you're doing it wrong, because I hadn't done any of it chronologically. It was just snapshots of things that had happened, and they were kind of more the major things that had happened rather than every single tiny little detail of what happened. And so once I said, stop trying to put it in chronological for this particular chapter, just write it. Yeah, and bam, it was done. And I remember texting my man and going, okay, I can go out for coffee now. It's like...
So that book's on Amazon.
Yes, it is.
So tell us its title again for the listeners.
Tough Times. Tough Times. And it's like a journey through a son's addiction. So
wonderful. And you've got a blog as well?
I do. So it's my webpage is mytoughtimes.com, and you can go on there. And so as things have happened, like since the book, I haven't actually written for ages, obviously, because I haven't been in my own home for 18 months, and I've had other traumatic experiences going on. So, but it's just as things would happen. And I think writing the book and writing the blog is just, I find it quite therapeutic, because you can't talk to a lot of people about what's going on in your life because they don't always understand it. So it's kind of like my outlet that I can go, rah! And I know that there's other people out there in the world who read it and go, yeah, I get what you're saying, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And so there's a link on my website to my Facebook page as well, the Tough Times Facebook page. And like I say, My Tough Times, and it's like a journey through a son's addiction, but the web page and the Tough Times page on Facebook is more about grief. You know, there's grief in having a child that, you know, you don't see. I mean, like with death, there's that ending and you can grieve for that person, but it's a different story grieving for somebody who's still alive, and that's what you do. You grieve for this person, your hopes and dreams for this child that you had.
Yeah.
And there's grief in what I've been through with my home, and I had an injury to my hand, as you know, that was, 7 years and getting repaired and being in and out of the splints. And like you said the other night, there's a grief in having a trauma to the body that doesn't heal as fast as what you would.
Yeah.
I feel that, there's tough times. It's like, even if your cat dies or your pet dies, it's a grief.
Yes.
So I like to, my Tough Times is about, not just about drug addiction, it's about any form of grief. I've lost my husband. I've lost my stepson to suicide. I lost my sister unexpectedly. She just passed away unexpectedly. And people close to me that have passed away. And of course, the eternal grief for the living child. So.
One question before we close. All along this pathway, while you've been through so much anguish and so much pain, there has been this amazingly creative and humorous aspect of yourself that has always shone through. How do you account for that? How do you get to marry those two things? A lot of people can't.
This is, I think, the hardest question to answer, because I think, I don't know, I suppose the creative side is also the soothing side. It stops you from thinking about all the anguish. It takes your mind away from the anguish because you've got to concentrate on what you're doing. The humour is like, sometimes it's quite a dark humour that not everyone gets, So like when my friend, my husband was cremated, and so he was sitting up on the cabinet in the house, and my friend came to see me, and her husband rang, and he said, say hi to Greg, and she yells at the top of the voice, hi Greg, and I'm like, honey, he's dead, he's not deaf, he's sitting right there, he can hear you, kind of thing, So a lot of people would find that quite inappropriate, whereas us, it's like, yeah, he's right there, he might be dead, but yeah, he ain't dead, he can hear me. And I suppose I have an inner belief and inner faith, of that, and I suppose my belief is that I will see my husband again, that we're here to learn lessons and to teach people, and that's what he taught me. So when he was dying, you know, and I'm like, I'm going to love you better. And he's like, babe, he says every time they try something, he said, my time's up. He said, you always said to me, we're here to teach and we're here to learn lessons. And he said, even though you and I haven't had as long as what we would like, I've obviously learned what I'm supposed to have learned from you and taught you what you need to know from me, and it's my time to go. And so that's my belief, was that, yeah, when your number's up, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm probably a little bit more accepting around sudden deaths and things like that. And I know that it's happened for that family or that person to learn from, and that's a really horrible way to learn, but sometimes that's the only way you can do it. And the belief that I will see my husband again, and that if I don't live this lifetime out, then I'll have to come back and do it all again, and I ain't doing that. I'm going to spend eternity with my husband. So I suppose the fact that that's what keeps me going is that I have to get through this lifetime to be able to see him again, and I totally believe I will see him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I'm just a really funny person. I crack me up. And I mean, the thing is, people who have read my book, you know, they go, oh, I'm not really a reader, you know, I don't really read books. And I swear to God, everyone says, oh my God, I could not put it down. And I'm just kind of like a little bit, oh really? Oh, okay, yeah, you know, because I didn't think that it would affect people like it has, you know, or give people, I suppose it gives people an insight into why and who I am and why I'm like I am, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing, my life is just too short. My husband was only 44 when he died. My sister was only 48, you know, and my stepson was only 33, you know, and it's like, you just never know when you're not going to be here. So you just got to love the people while you're here, and you just got to bring fun into people's lives, because life just gets too caught up and everybody's so materialistic, and it's not about that. It's about loving the people that you're with now, you know, because you know, you can't just show them that love when they're not here anymore, you know, so you've got to show it to them while you're honestly. And it doesn't have to be, you know, oh, I love you, Pat. It's the fact that, you know, I make you a scarf and I send it to you because I know you like that colours and that you're flamboyant, or, you know, or it's like, you know, a friend goes, oh, I really like the unicorn, so I'll create it for them, and that, because it's something I can do and something that they're going to love, you know. So there's lots of ways to show love, and it's all little. It's all little, so you can show love.
I still have a key ring that you made for me.
Well, that's the thing. And then, like, remember the survival kits? I don't know who gave me mine. Someone gave me one when my husband died, and so yeah, the other day, because you know, our job, we've just lost, you know, half of our team, and the company's not in a position to be able to replace any of them. So we're now down to 6, trying to do the work of 12. And so I made all my team a survival kit, you know, and it's like there's an elastic to stretch yourself, there's always a limit, so there's a piece of string to hold it all together when it's falling apart, and a marble for those days when you've lost drawers, you know, and a little eraser to rub out the little mistakes, and a piece of blue tack so that you can stick with it, and you know you can accomplish anything. And there's 10 cents, so you're never completely broke. And then there's Hershey's Kiss, so you know that somebody loves you. And I do them up in little organza bags, and I just took them in, and I gave them all, the whole team, not just mine, the whole floor one, on Mother's Day. And I said, you know, this is your, yay, you've got a Mother's Day present, if they didn't have children of their own, you know, or it's like, you know, happy Mother's Day, and whatever. So, and it's just a little something, that tiny little bag like this with tiny little things in it, that just makes people realise that they can do and they can achieve whatever they want to. You know?
Lee Kirkman, you are a gift to the planet. And, you know, I think for me, how would I describe you? I think it's your raw authenticity that is so endearing, and want to honour you for that. Thank you so much. I think this interview is going to go off like Topsy. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, we'll talk soon. Okay. Bye.
Thank you for being with us this week on the Laughter Channel, where human interest meets humour interest. My guest this week was Lee Kirkman, and I'd like to acknowledge her great capacity for humour, especially satire and pathos, and her raw authenticity. We hope her story can add value to the lives of others moving through difficult times.